everyone, and once again, welcome again to iCare's ninth annual summit. We are so excited. We have with us today Dr. Monique Kane, and she's here talking about the topic of effectuating change with the anti-racism approach. Dr. Kane serves as the Director of Informational Systems and Security Services for the Residential Life at Louisiana State University, and she is also an adjunct professor in the area of higher education and educational technology. Dr. Kane was elected to serve 2 terms as the LSU Black Faculty and Staff Caucus President for the 2018-2022 term. She works for LSU and has worked there for over 20 years. We have had some phenomenal presentations, and we know this presentation is going to be informational and phenomenal as well. And Dr. Kane comes with a wealth of information. So thank you so much, Dr. Kane, for being with us today. And let's welcome Dr. Kane.
Thank you, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. If you saw me like moving around and like, oh my goodness, that's because they had told me that it's like a 10-second delay, but I was like unsure. I was like, oh my God, like I'm off. My time is off. So yeah, I didn't know anything about eye care before I started, but I'm just so happy to be here with you all and to give you some information, and hopefully we can do some good thinking and brainstorming in this. Okay. So they introduced me. So I want to just tell you a little bit more about me. I think it's important all the time to kind of introduce yourself, let people know where you're coming from, and and what you've done. So a little bit about me. I'm originally from Chi-Town, Chicago, Illinois, and go Bears and go Cubs. The Saints all right, but I got to stick with my Bears. And I want y'all to light the chat up. Please talk to each other. Let me see you chatting. I want to see your comments as much as we can. I was very poor growing up. Lived on the south side of Chicago. And as you know, it is freezing in Chicago. So when people tell you about the hawk, they are talking about the wind. It will take your breath away. One of my favorite things to do when I was in seventh and eighth grade was to serve people. So I was an altar girl in Catholic school, the first altar girl at St. Ambrose. I also served in soup kitchens with my Catholic school, where I received a scholarship from, and sometimes ate there. I walked miles and miles to school. I know people say that all the time, but I literally walked miles and miles to school. And when I graduated eighth grade, I received like a very huge scholarship to go to boarding school in Indiana. So I went to Culver Academy. So I went to boarding school for 4 years for high school, and came to Louisiana. My dad passed away from cancer my freshman year. And at that moment, I was determined to make sure that I was to get my education, because he always told me that education was my key to ending poverty. And he was right. And as they say in Louisiana, yes, indeed, exactly what he said. Um, I am first generation college graduate at all levels, and a trio achiever. I have a bachelor's in information systems, decision sciences. I have a master's in public administration, and my PhD is in ed leadership and research. And I focused on higher education administration. So I'll show my little family, then I'll go back. That's my little family. And so my husband and I have 2 beautiful boys, 6 and 12 now. Um, Most people who know me and have been on calls with me, if I was at home, you would hear the smallest asking for the craziest stuff. So I know we all know what that's like when you're on Zoom and the kids come in and they just say everything and anything. It's embarrassing. And so everybody knows who Landon was. That's the baby. Um, so I teach 2 courses over the year. I'm an adjunct professor for LSU. I teach student development theory. I also teach, look at this, I can't do my own stuff. I also teach educational technology, ed tech administration of programs. Um, and I love my students. I teach about 5 times a year. So I do that, this, and everything else. We also, I've also been at LSU for 21 years. And I work in technology. And everybody's like, you work in technology? Yes. I used to be the one that would come fix your servers, computers, everything. Now I'm just running everything. And I still have to go out and do things. But my husband and I own a barbershop in South Baton Rouge, Hillside Barbershop, on East Washington Street. So we're part of the community. Um, Also, too, as they introduced me, I am the president for the Black Faculty and Staff Caucus. So this technology professional is putting on her other hat as the president of Black Faculty and Staff Caucus here to let you know how I get in good trouble, as they say. So, so we will go to this next side. Let's get my little family again. All right. Um, All right. So before we jump all the way in, I want to start with talking about. We'll start talking about kind of with the caucus stuff. It kind of leads you into some small things, but I want everybody to light up the chat. I'm gonna see it like 10 seconds delayed. So if I look delayed, that's what's going on because I'm looking to see it what you all are doing. So everybody tell me how fatigued you are about COVID. I mean, I am so tired of learning the new how many days a week you gotta isolate, you can't touch this, you do that, don't wash your groceries anymore, all kind of stuff. Light the chat up if you're tired. Monique Carter is over. I know. Me too, girl. So as y'all are doing that, what about racial battle fatigue, my people of color? I know I'm tired. As people say, I'm is tired. But for those not familiar with this term, it was originally used in reference to the experiences of African Americans in America, but is now expanded to describe the negative and racially charged experiences of all people of color. We are way tired and over it. So y'all like to chat up and say, I'm tired. And this is for everyone. How much, I'm gonna say Zoom fatigue or whatever this is. I think we're using StreamYard. We are all tired. We are ready to touch and agree, as they say in my church. So I know we are over Zoom, and but we're going to try to keep this conversation very interactive. So I want you all to light the chat up. I want you all to talk to each other. I know I'm the last one, but y'all don't treat me like I'm the last one. I want to make sure that we are talking with each other and that we are giving good input. And it'll make the time fly by better. So, one more work fatigue. I have 21 student workers, I have 8 full-time staff, including myself. And it is so challenging, including with COVID, to see who's out or who's doing this. And sometimes you got to work from home. One time, sometimes you got to do this. Sometimes you got. I mean, we are all over the place with everything, and just life stuff, right? I want you all to type. What do you value most since going through COVID these past 2 years? What is your greatest value? And major burnout. We all are burned out, but we can't let it stop us. You know, we need to continue to have empathy for one another and let each other know that we see each other and that we understand. And in doing this exercise, I kind of just want to bring everybody like in thoughts that we all hurt, we're all tired, we all need to relieve stress, but most of all, we all have something in common and we all are human and that we all need each other. And I love seeing the chat light up. Y'all better keep this chat going or I'm gonna be upset. So keep this chat going. All right, so I want to talk a tiny bit about the Black Faculty and Staff Caucus. Um, I want to start off by saying Dr. Martin Luther King said, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. I hold this quote to be true, each and every day as I represent the Black Faculty Staff Caucus here at LSU. And my term is actually up May the 4th, 2022. I've done 4 years, and now I have to dye my hair because I swear I'm all gray. But they're my heartbeat. Black Faculty Staff Caucus is the boots to the ground. And it was founded in 1975 by Dean Collins and Dr. Durant. And we were founded to serve the special needs of LSU Black employees by promoting understanding of Black concerns, providing assistance, education, social interaction for the faculty and staff, and to provide our employees and students a proactive organization capable of investigating complaints, addressing problems, and working alongside of administration to find resolution with things. We have a very talented group of individuals that I work with every day that support our caucus. And we have some guiding principles that includes like pillars of leadership, diversity, equity, justice, awareness, support, transparency, heritage, all those things. So all of those things continue to help serve LSU and our community. But there are challenges, and there are challenges with everything, and everything we do, especially when you're trying to create a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive environment. We try to push to leverage our Black voices on campus and our community, and not only to have a seat at a table, but a voice that counts. And I think that's so important. You can give someone a seat at the table, but only expect them to be silent bystanders. Um, Many people come against efforts in the ways of like lack of inclusion in meetings, or oh, we forgot to include you, or this and that. Or groups like this get worked to death on like fix yourself, and it's just like invisible labor and smoke screens and different things like that. So a lot of things that I've tried to help with is stopping that and letting people know up front, no, we're not going to do that. This is what we are committed to doing. Or if we get a seat at the table, then we have to have full transparency, and you're going to have to understand what's going on. And so, and like I said, those are opportunities for us to keep ourselves involved. And I'm not going to go too much more. That a little bit later, we're going to talk about DEI, because I could talk the entire time about Black Faculty and Staff Caucus. But I use this as my base to talk to you how to effectuate change with thoughtful strategy to engage like in anti-racist conversations and to break barriers. So let's talk a tiny bit about diversity and inclusion, and let's just define it like really quick. So when we talk about diversity, we encompass a multitude of identities: race, sex, gender, identity, etc., like that, right? Equity, fair and equitable treatment, access and opportunity, inclusion, thoughts of all individuals matter, especially those that you are making decisions, processes, practice, and policy for. These individuals need a seat at the table and a voice. You can not only invite them, their voice, ideas, and truth must matter as well. And truth is very important because that's a person's story and the way they experience things. Um, and diversity, equity, and inclusion creates an environment of belonging and feeling of connectedness, an environment that engages full potential of individuals, where innovation thrives and reviews, beliefs, and values are integrated. So now let's see what systems are working against all of our DEI efforts. So I want you to, we are going to look at a little video. It kind of breaks down racism in a way where we can all relate to it. And I want to see in the chat if you're familiar with these different types of racism. So feel free to blow the chat up.
Structural, institutional, and systemic racism broadly refer to the system of structures that have procedures or processes that disadvantage racial minorities and particularly black people. It refers to the rules, practices, and customs once rooted in law with residual effects that reverberate throughout society, each with their own nuances. A good example of systemic racism is redlining, a system once used by banks and the real estate industry that literally outlined the neighborhoods where people of color lived in red ink. If you lived inside of the red lines, loans were considered risky and banks were less likely to give loans or even invest. The practice was banned in 1968, but the impacts live on, preventing black families from amassing wealth at the same rate as their white neighbors on the other side of that red line. Need proof? According to the Federal Reserve, the net worth of a typical white family is $171,000. That's 10 times greater than that of a black family. Homes in black neighborhoods are generally and historically worth less than white homes because the developers and businesses that make a neighborhood are less likely to be there. That means the tax base is lower too, which has a trickle down effect. Less tax dollars for schools means fewer kindergarten classes, fewer qualified teachers, fewer AP classes. That leads to lower graduation rates from high school and even fewer graduates from college. This is in part caused by the school to prison pipeline that disproportionately impacts people of color. Institutional racism is more narrowly defined as the overt and covert forces blocking people of color from accessing the same opportunities as white people. Many of these children may benefit from additional educational and counseling services. Instead of getting the help they need, they're isolated, punished, or incarcerated. Once you have a criminal record, it invades all aspects of your life. Getting everything from a job to an apartment becomes that more difficult. Many people believe their communities are over policed, presumed to be overly dangerous. But consider this: black and brown people account for 30% of the US population, but account for 43% of people killed by police and more than half of the incarcerated population. Institutional racism goes beyond just serving time. Something as simple as hair can be used to discriminate. Rules at school and the workplace that don't allow for dreadlocks, cornrows, and braids, they discriminate and don't take into consideration hair texture and singles out people based on their physical traits, creating rules where rules aren't needed, rules that control people of color. So, who gets to make all of these rules in society? Since America was colonized, it's been white people who've made these rules. First with slavery, then Jim Crow laws, and separate but equal rules, and even creating limits on who can immigrate into the country. The term given to define that power, white privilege. It refers to whites' historical and contemporary advantages in access to quality education, decent jobs, a livable wage, home ownership, retirement benefits, and wealth, regardless of socioeconomic status.
All right. Okay. Let me go to the next page. Don't you play it again now. I didn't ask you for all that. All right. Okay. So um I like this video because it just really breaks it down kind of in a simple term, as far as the different types of structural, institutional, systemic racism. I mean, the example of redlining, I mean, I think Tanya said it in the chat. I mean, it's just astronomical. I mean, and we are still feeling all these effects today. Um, and I mean, it's rippling down from, I mean, from everywhere. And we can see it, through, the generations and how things have happened. So, you know, when they said the median net worth of a white family is 171,000 in contrast to a black family at 17K, I mean, I just don't have any words. That's just inhumane. Um, and all of this stuff leads to less tax money for our public schools and helping our children and breaking these chains and these barriers so that they can be educated, so that they can help their families and help themselves. Um, and like they said, all this leads to less college graduates. And this is just unacceptable for any human being. You know, I mean, they define institutional racism, and you know, sometimes they use systemic and structural racism are synonymous, and kind of they're used interchangeably. So I'm not going to go back like through all of that stuff. We're going to kind of move on a little bit and talk about racism and white supremacy. So, like they said, you know, it's ingrained in America's institutions and systems for hundreds of years. Um, and let's recognize that for hundreds of years, people's ideologies, field practice, policy, laws, and system structures have been built upon this. Um, you know, it's affected so much of what we do and how we live today. You know, we all have to kind of come together and figure out in our different fields and in our communities how to tear down these barriers rock by rock, piece by piece, place by place, and bite by bite. You know, it's almost like you're eating an elephant, one bite at a time, but you got to keep going till you finish. You know, we have to do a deep dive to figure out where the issues lie and where we're willing to change. You know, this all affects the needs of all humans, including our most vulnerable populations, marginalized groups, people living in poverty, people oppressed by all forms of, you know, racism and injustice. It's just time to kind of look inward and take a look to see how we can remove these barriers and just make meaningful change together. Um, I read in a recent article where the researcher gave like 5 interventions to look um, to look at. He actually called them and to address racism. He called it PRESS, PREESS, problem awareness, root cause analysis, empathy or level of concern about a problem and the people it afflicts, strategies for addressing the problem, and sacrifice, a willingness to invest your time, energy, and resources necessary for strategy implementation. Organizations kind of go through these stages, moving from understanding to underlying condition and to developing genuine concern to focusing on correction. And so, you know, in lifting and us looking inside, we have to see how can we live. POC is persons of color, people of color, and marginalized groups. You know, we have to commit ourselves to anti-racism efforts by being like change agents, right? So individually, collectively, institutionally, we need allyship. We need to commit to recruit, retain, and train more people of colors on all levels in all fields. We need to imagine what that could look like and the collaboration taking place and how that can transform people's lives, and especially in education, because that's where it starts. Um, and a quote by Robert Livingston that I thought was really important is racism has less to do with what's in your heart or mind and more to do with how your actions and inactions amplify or enable the systemic dynamics already in place. So I got one more video for y'all, and I'll stop videoing y'all to death.
Time for our cover story against racism, a powerful discussion being had everywhere. You may be hearing this term thrown around quite a bit on social media, anti-racist. Deborah Roberts joins us now with more from expert minds, and there's a book out there, a best-selling book called How to Be Anti-Racist. Good morning to you, Deborah.
Good morning, TJ. Listen, there's no question we are a country that is in pain, but if there is a glimmer of hope in the midst of all of this, it's the conversations that are springing up lately. I've had them with family and friends and colleagues. Many are not people of color, but they are people with an aching heart and a deep desire to see change in this country, and most important, within themselves.
For Jamie Jones Coleman, those protests challenging the status quo feel personal. Her husband of 10 years, Reggie, is Black, and they're raising 2 biracial sons, Caleb and Gabriel.
My boys are viewed in this world as Black. And as a parent, as a white parent of a multiracial child, it's imperative upon me to try and help prepare them for their world the best that I can.
Her multiracial family, she says, has opened her eyes.
I think the biggest thing that I've realized being married to a Black man in the United States today is that when people meet me, they never fear me.
Racial disparities and inequities are everywhere, are all around us, are in almost every neighborhood and institution.
In his book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, author and professor Ibram X. Kendi offers a blueprint for creating a just society and says change begins with understanding and clearly defining terms like racist and anti-racist.
There's no such thing as not racist. In other words, we're either being racist or anti-racist. We're either expressing that the racial groups are equals, and we believe that, or we're thinking that certain racial groups are better or worse than others.
So what does it mean to be anti-racist?
What it means to be anti-racist is to express anti-racist ideas, meaning all the racial groups are equals. There's no racial group is better or worse than another. And also to advocate for anti-racist policies. And these are policies that lead to racial equity and justice.
Anti-racism is a verb. It's a behavior.
Jennifer Harvey, an author who writes about white parents raising kids in a just society, says creating a new normal may be uncomfortable, but change usually is.
A lot of white Americans might feel afraid or might feel uncomfortable to start talking about race. But of course, that's nothing like the fear that Black families live with all the time. Start speaking. We might make mistakes, but we'll get better at it.
For those invested in change, she offers this advice. Educate yourself.
This is not the time to ask your Black friends or ask your neighbor what you need to know about racism. We can buy Black scholars' books. We can download and support podcasts. We can watch media that people of color have produced.
Donate.
Actively support, both locally and nationally, people of color, businesses, racial justice groups, elected officials.
Protest.
Show up to stand with people of color in your community who are in the streets fighting for change.
And understand your role.
For me to listen to people of color, to listen to their experiences, to know their truth as best as I can, knowing that I will never be in their same world, but I can respect that world and I can listen to their words.
If there's anything that seems to be different right now, is that so many are digging deep and searching for information. Books on justice and equality seem to be flying off the shelves or certainly out of the bookstores. But the experts caution, TJ, as you know, that this can't be a one and done thing, a one book or let's take a look at this one time. Long-term commitment, they say, is all about awareness and action. And as you heard in the piece just now, anti-racist behavior is a verb, an action verb. I thought that was actually very interesting.
And Deb, you know, anytime something comes up, anyone is accused of doing something, the first thing they say is, I'm not racist.
Right.
And they're saying now, Deb, that that's not good enough just to say you're not racist. You have to be active these days. And I'm sure you're having a lot of conversations. I'm getting a lot of calls from white friends kind of checking in about behavior, if you will. And they're well-meaning, you understand, but Deborah, that's not necessarily enough. You getting calls like that as well?
Yeah, I do. But you know what? I appreciate them too, though. And I understand that, the experts are saying, well, that's not the way to handle it. But I appreciate that. And I want to be part of the conversation. I don't want to blame people because nobody wants to see themselves as a racist. I get that. But I think we do need to start at that point that we all have some bias. And let's try to figure out some ways to deal with that and to see each other differently, to see you besides more than just the color.
Yes, and it shows at least that they're trying and looking for a way. Deb, always good to see you. Thanks so much. I'll be talking to you soon, all right?
Well, hey there, GMA fan.
All right. Okay. So Dr. Kendi, he said to be an anti-racist is one who is expressing anti-racist ideas or supporting anti-racist policy with their actions. He is an American author, professor, anti-racist activist, and a historian of race and discriminatory policy in America. In July 2020, he assumed the position of director for the Center of Anti-Racist Research at Boston University. You know, let's talk a little bit more. I thought this was helpful when I found it. There was a chart that's adapted by Andrew. He's an MD, Dr. Andrew Ibram, from Who Do I Want to Be During COVID-19 chart, with some ideas pulled from Dr. Kendi's work. So I thought this was pretty cool. And I like that these are developing stages of becoming an anti-racist, because it's kind of, I mean, you can see different ways through this, right? And see how people are developing. So the fear zone, I can describe as being silent and only worrying about yourself, right? The learning zone, I like to describe as the educational period of development, looking within oneself, listening to others, seeking answers, feeling and have that uncomfortable feeling. And the growth stage is like more of an action stage, right? This is where all my allies and advocates, and I like to call them sometimes accomplices, that are fighting with me against injustice and oppression. The table will grow with the voices that are needed to effectuate change, and having people be our allies, advocates, and accomplices. You know, we need their voice, right? And I didn't skip down to my little stuff. So let's just talk about like a little bit about everyday life, right? In everyday life, we have like questions, discussions, you know, you got people complaining, or you may even be complaining yourself. You know, it's going to require like people to be uncomfortable. It's going to require people to have uncomfortable conversations, at home, at school, on the job. I know that there are difficult questions and situations, especially navigating policy, practice, and procedure that's unfair. But that requires us to have these uncomfortable conversations with each other, right? And I don't see y'all talking in the chat, so I need y'all to light it up and talk to each other about and comment on what I'm saying. It may even make you have to do some research. You may have to do some research on what's really going on, like the lady in the video was saying. You know, it's so many resources and educational books and articles that you can read to educate yourself instead of having to ask someone. You know, equip yourself with that knowledge. And is it going to be easy? Absolutely not. It is not going to be easy, and it's going to take work. Remember, you're trying to create an anti-racist environment, not tiptoe around it and take the easy way out. You know, I like to tell my white colleagues, students, friends, that your Black colleagues and other people of color are living this every day, along with carrying the torch to help each other and to support each other. And how traumatizing is it every day to have to keep going through all of these nuances and craziness and look at this policy and all these procedures that's affecting you as a person of color in a negative way. And we need you. We need you to be our allies. We need you to be our voices when we're not in the room, or rooms that we can't get into. And especially, we need you to have courage with us and be with us on this journey. All right. So I wanted to talk a little bit with, like, how can I create meaningful anti-racist interactions? I do believe that thoughtful strategy to expand exposure and knowledge in anti-racist practices is going to come from research. You're going to have to expose things. Breaking barriers is going to take a lot of work from people. Like the videos we watched today, you know, you're going to have to be uncomfortable as everyone is. Well, I know I'm uncomfortable every day. But I am willing to get up and wake up and put my clothes on and do this over and over again every day. And I have for my whole life, and today too. And I know that this takes like extra work, but there's different things we could do. So, you know, as you're in your fields, some parents may be on here with your students, you know, we can, and that goes for all different kind of cultures and identities, reading the literature, books, media research. You know, when we are thinking about bringing people into places like for students or faculty or staff, I mean, grab some of these people of color. I mean, look for the speakers that can come and the visitors, panels, professional development, whatever have you. We have to get used to seeing these people of color and integrating them into our lives. You know, exposure to other people in the color in the field can increase education and exposure and create more of an inclusive viewpoint of things. It would also cultivate better communication with colleagues, students, faculty, staff. You know, it is our job as teachers, supervisors, staff to expose our students with uncomfortable discussions and supply them with the knowledge to make informed decisions and sometimes life-changing decisions for people that don't look like them and have a totally different set of experiences because of oppression, racism. And in addition, and I'm not using my, I need an assistant. You know, doing like field trips that are helping to broaden your mind, and not just doing, oh, we're going to the zoo. Let's do some other things that we can do that's helping us. You know, we talk about unconscious bias training as well can equip all of us with skills to recognize and to reduce our own biases in the communication and decisions we make every day. Let's see. All right. Institutional courage. I really love institutional courage. What does it look like? Well, I mean, to think about it, I hadn't thought about this, you know, you're kind of looking at a living, breathing example of institutional courage. You know, as I told you, I mean, I speak as a Black woman. Um, you know, I get up every day with a bunch of courage and just to come to work and smile. And, you know, I deal with different forms of racism, microaggressions, and goodness knows whatever else is going on for that day and whatever, you know, is going on in my life. You know, it's not easy to sit in front of you today. And although this is my first rodeo, I'm sure there's some blank stares or why is this important? There she goes again. But I have to speak up. I have to tell my story. I have to tell my truth. I have to make sure that my voice is being heard for those that have been silent or have been silenced. Um, you know, silence is complicity. We need people to speak up. And your silence is complicity. When you see something and you don't say it or try to correct it, or either let people know that's not cool. Um, you know, as I said, I always ask my white colleagues, and you can ask them. Monique is going to ask me to speak up for her when she is not in the room and I see something that's wrong. And not only for me, but people of color, people with different identities that are being marginalized by policy, practice, or procedure. We really need leaders and decision makers to stand up and help to effectuate the change that is needed. And I know it's scary sometimes. But you just have to, sometimes you just have to, you have to do it scared. Um, and this is an environment, we want to create an environment of courage. Um, we need you to be advocates. We need you to have courage, have humanity, have the audacity to hope, change our community and change our world at the same time. We have to make a commitment, and I don't want this to get lost. We have to make a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, period. And standing up for others is a part of that. Like, you are the voice people need to hear. And sometimes when someone hears your voice, they feel encouraged that their voice counts, and maybe they will step up next time. Maybe they will talk later after the meeting, or look at that policy, or when they're making a policy, don't add all this other stuff in there, because now you're just marginalizing a group that doesn't even have anything to do with them. But we all need to have compassion, kindness, and empathy with everyone we meet, and to listen to them, to hear their stories, and let their truth be our foundation to cultivate an environment conducive to encourage and promote institutional courage. It's like a fist. I'm not going to use the soul food example, but you have 5 fingers. I can't make a fist like this, but if I put them all together, and this is all of us right now on the call as a team, we can hurt something and make a difference and open that door. We can knock that door down. So, I encourage you all to be supportive of each other, and listen to each other, and open your ears and your mind to see things differently and through someone else's lenses. And I am going to say this to everyone: we are better together. We are so much better together. We need everyone. We are all a village together. As people of color, I cannot do this alone. I need everyone. As a woman, I can't do it without the men. So we need everyone. We can't do it without our non-binary sisters and brothers. So be an ally, be an advocate, stand up for someone, stand in the gap for them, be there for them, be there for that person or group when they're not in the room, and allow people to speak their truth. Let them speak, let them speak. Stop silencing people, because it's quick to like, oh, but no, let them finish their sentence so that you can fully understand what they're saying. Our job is to listen and put some supportive actions behind those words. I like to tell everyone to have courage and have humanity. When you express anti-racist ideas or support anti-racist policy with your actions, you can start a chain reaction. And I will conclude today, because I wanted to leave some time, and I don't even know how that works, if we can be interactive like that. But I will conclude by leaving you with a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King. In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. And I also want to leave you with like some takeaway questions just for you to think about, if you decide to go on this journey. But if you don't, we still rolling without you. What actions have I made to support anti-racist policy, practice, or procedure? What racist policies, behavior, practice, or procedure do you or your students deal with? What does my courage look like? How do I perceive the educational or work environment? What daily anti-racist actions can you implement to create an anti-racist environment? And that is my presentation. And I am so happy to be with you all today. So I don't know if we can do questions. I'm going to stop sharing. I think I'm on. Okay, let me see. Everyone can see and hear me. Okay. Let me see. I don't know if I turn on comments or not. Okay. Oh, there we go. So I don't know. Can we, I guess, do we talk through the chat? Y'all, my support team, Britt, what do we do? Do we talk or do we do the chat? I'm trying to figure out what's up. All right. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you. I see you saying thank you for the presentation. So I guess, does anyone have any questions? Somebody's coming up to help me, looks like. Let's see. Okay, Tanya says, what tips can you give professional groups moving forward in anti-racist change to press through despite uncomfortable feelings when they arise? I think you need to acknowledge those uncomfortable feelings, because a lot of times people get uncomfortable when they don't have enough knowledge or when they don't have enough information. When you're using new terms and they're like, oh, what's that? I'm not racist. I don't know what that is. So introducing people to different types of information, or just giving them something to study before you even have that conversation, right? And then sometimes it's okay to walk away from the table like, I really need to think about that, and I really need to do a little bit more research to figure out how this policy or what we're about to do is affecting what we're going to do. So I think that information is power. So I think that once you can give people the information, how they say numbers don't lie, research doesn't lie. And when you base things on facts and give people, if it's not esoteric, and you're giving people those facts, then that is what they need to move forward. And you can't deny a truth, a fact. So that's what I think, Tanya. Thank you for your question. And I'm trying to see, how about the initiative in schools on critical race theory? Girl, that is a whole thing. I can't even get into critical race theory and talking about all that. Like that, I would have to bring you Dean Roland Mitchell in here to discuss that, because that is, he would have to come and discuss that. So I'll have to leave that to the experts on that content. So it's different. So someone is asking about organization resources to recommend to bring like diversity, culture change, training for staff. We have at LSU, we have a diversity, equity, and inclusion group that we use, and they offer a number of trainings and different things like that. They may bring people out. I mean, even starting with Dr. Kendi's book and seeing who he's getting his research with. There's a number of people out there that you can get to come in and do trainings. But I think maybe hooking up with some of the local people who do this every day, because of course I don't do this every day. I do it in real life in terms of the Black Faculty Staff Caucus and my research interests. But people that are doing it every day and that are getting the trainings in, Dr. Luz Randolph for LSU is over our DEI stuff right now. She may be a good resource to look at that too. And Brandon Smith actually is our like community partners person and at LSU, and I know they would be two really good contacts to get like some questions in. and ask who people are using. And it's good to look in your field as well, because you want to make sure that the content is relevant, right? You want to make sure that you're making that content is uniquely made so that you can make sure you're getting the value out of it. So I hope, is it Kyra? I hope that answered your question. And yes, Dr. Elaine Maceo is a great resource. I love Elaine from social work at LSU. She is the best. I love her to death. And she's actually a part of our Black Faculty and Staff Caucus. Yes, Kyra, you can email me. That'd be great. I'm trying to look at the chat, y'all. Let's see. I'm looking. Oh, very good, Caroline. Her class was able to go to the Whitney Museum in St. John Parish, and she highly recommends it. That's awesome. And those are definitely great enrichment experiences, and opens all of our minds to the past and the present of what we are dealing with. Wait, I got new comments. This is a new thing. I'm so used to Zoom and Teams. I'm messing this up, y'all. All right. Do y'all have any more questions? And I really hope, and so this conversation is meant for it to be thought-provoking, right? Not for me to come here and give you all the answers that you need, because I don't have them all. We all have to get there. We are all riding this train together and trying to get to the same place. So this is for you to take back to your individual groups, departments, fields, and dig deeper together and work better together and help everyone figure this thing out. We can only figure out our piece of the pie, but if everybody in the world is working on this, we can have a whole pie instead of these little slits and slivers all over. So, and you're a big part of making this whole a pie and not a sliver. And so I thank you all so much for listening to me today. And I appreciate you so much. And I hope everyone takes care. I don't know if there are any more announcements or anybody else that needs to take over, but I think I'm done.
Good. Thank you so much, Dr. Kane. Phenomenal, enlightening, and thank you for opening up the space for allowing everyone to have the opportunity to share and really learn from one another and share those ideas. We truly appreciate it here at iCare, as well as for those participants who are here today. So thank you to all our participants who shared, who listened, and who was here with us today at iCare during our 9th annual summit. We look forward to seeing you all again next year. Please continue to share out the information, and you can look at some of these sessions or all of these sessions over and over again as much as you would like, and share with others as well. And of course, we'll close out and you get an opportunity to hear some of the same information. Just as a friendly reminder, we do have evaluations open until 4:30 today. So please fill out those evaluations so you can get certificates or CEUs. And if you have any questions, please contact Chandra DeLone at iCare. You can visit us on the website or call at 225-226-2273. And once again, Dr. Kane, and to everybody, thank you so much. This is something that we will all remember and take with us, and continue to make those changes. And if anyone has any final remarks, you feel free to put in the chat. And once again, thank everybody.